What up, guys? So if you've watched my other video, the 5 things I love about this bike, this is going to be the 5 things I hate or dislike about my bike, which is a 2015 Honda NC700X. It also would apply to the NC750, but again, this is about my bike. Maybe some of the things don't exactly apply to your exact bike. So one of the things I don't like about this bike is the engine. It's an adequate engine. It does what it needs to do. It's just not very fun. It's also quite unique how it has a rev range that only goes up to about like 6,500. It's kind of a car engine. Apparently it's half of a Honda Fit engine, which is pretty unique, but it's just not, you know, it doesn't have very much power, and where it does have power, up at the top, you hit red line so fast, it's hard to really use it. Now, it's definitely adequate and plenty, since this bike doesn't, you know, suspension's basic. This bike doesn't really do good being ridden past, you know, 6/10, 5/10, whatever, at a mild to moderate pace. If you're trying to go real quick, it's going to get upset. So the engine is one of the things I dislike about this bike, but because of those, you know, attributes I mentioned, there's also positive things about the engine, which would be fuel economy, maintenance schedule, and all that stuff. You can check out in my other video. One of the other things I, you know, hate about this bike or dislike is the fun factor, which kind of leads back from the engine and the suspension on this bike. It's fun because it's very basic and easy and works. It's not fun in the sense that you're going to want to take it up in the canyon and go carve around, which is how, you know, I've used my bikes in the past and the bikes that I've ridden. It's kind of just a meh bike, you know. It doesn't have much character, as people would say, or it doesn't have the character that many people would like, right? The character it has is you know, complacent, usable, easygoing. You know, it's not what some people want from a bike. For what I use it for, it's what I want, but for the other aspect, it's like I don't really take it out on joy rides, or I don't take it out on the weekend. So the fun factor is one of the things I dislike about this bike. The next thing I dislike about this bike and how I use it and how my bike's set up would be the fuel tank location. So because the fuel tank is located underneath the rear seat, it just makes fueling up a bit more of a pain than if it was, you know, right here, but that's obviously a trade-off. So because it's not right here, we have this big storage compartment, which is a huge plus for what I use the bike for. But since I have like soft saddlebags in the back, they're running over in a cargo net, I have to, you know, undo the saddlebags and pop it open, and it adds, you know, it doesn't add really much time at all. You know, 30 seconds to a minute to each fill up. Plus, since you can go so far per fill up because it gets good gas mileage, it's not the biggest deal, but it's just one of the things that I find to be a little bit obnoxious. So BMW had a bike in the past. It was called the F650. You know, it's the smaller adventure style from their GS, and it had a fuel tank that was also under the seat and in the back, but the fuel fill up was on the side, which I'll insert in pictures so you can see. It would have been cool if it had something like that, but again, it's just one of the things that, you know, I don't love about it and wish was different. The next thing I hate about this bike is the horn and blinker location. So you can see down here, horn and blinker, it's flipped from how pretty much all other motorcycles are. The horn is where the blinker is, and it's a much larger button, which is nice once you're used to it, because then you can honk. And I'm riding in the city, and I'm on a motorcycle, so I kind of have to honk fairly often so people see me and just, you know, hey, I'm here, don't pull out, or you're merging into me, or whatever. But it takes some getting used to. I've owned, you know, over 20 motorcycles, and obviously none of them have been like this. They've all been different. So to, you know, reprogram my brain to use them takes some time. And then it's also just a little bit painful, because sometimes I want to use the horn, I want to use the blinker, and I can't just use it right away. I have to kind of think about it, or at least early on when I first was getting used to the bike. So that's just something to know. Again, it's minimal. You'll get used to it. You know, it's just something I disliked when I first got it. It's grown on me since, just because the horn button is big and easy to touch now, which needs to be used quite a bit riding around Los Angeles, you know, city streets. So the final thing and the largest thing I hate or dislike about this bike is the transmission. The transmission, I have obviously the manual bike with the clutch. You know, the transmission works. It's very clunky and it doesn't feel very tight. You know, it's hard to explain transmissions, but some are slick and smooth, some just pop into gear and feel so positive. Clutchless upshifts are a breeze. This bike, Doesn't really like being clutchless shifted. It'll shift fine, but what'll happen is the gear lever doesn't like reset. You can clutch the shift up, but then you go to shift to the next gear and the lever is kind of like just floppy. You can tell the internal hasn't like reset the dog rings to then go into the next gear. When I clutch the shift 2, it'll sometimes happen where it'll fall out of gear or just be stuck in the in-between. So, you know, you shift from 4th to 5th and it just gets stuck in between there, and then it just free revs and makes, you know, gruesome noise of the transmission just rattling about. So yeah, it'll fall out of gear. You can get false neutrals between gears. You have to just be very positive and direct with your shifting input. You know, use the clutch, shift up all the way, let it out. Like, you just got to be, you can't ride it like a slick like sport bike transmission where you could just be, you know, clutch or shifting, bang bang up. It doesn't take well to that, which kind of goes back into the earlier thing. You know, the fun factor on this bike is just lower due to the nature of it. That's the last thing I hate or dislike about this bike. So just to recap on the 5 things I dislike and hate about this bike is the engine, the rev range, the fun factor, the fuel tank location, the horn and blinker location, the fact that they're swapped from normal, and the transmission. And this is going to be in the end of the video, so people probably aren't going to see this, but I've previously made a 10 things I hate about a bike, and it was one of my first videos, which wasn't very good. I was very, you know, monotone and just blah in the video, and people found everything I chose very nitpicky. It was on my SV650, which it was, but I just had to, you know, come up with 10 things that I disliked about the bike for the video, which was maybe a little forced. But I just want to add that these are things that I don't like about my bike. They could be different about yours. I don't know if maybe this transmission has just been used more aggressively than others, but nothing is like a deal breaker. Nothing is a reason you wouldn't buy this bike or wouldn't want this bike. Well, something maybe like the fun factor, you know, it's not gonna rip like a Versys 650 or an SV650 or something like that, but then those also aren't as usable as this bike. So I just wanted to throw in a little disclaimer at the end here to not throw too much hate at all the things, because you know, they're just personal opinions and how I feel about my bike. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I'm gonna be posting more videos about this bike and Postmates and whatnot. So yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.